Welcome back to part 2, the world of work. Lele is joining us again to answer some very important questions. And we'll dive right in. We concluded the last part with skills, and we're going to remain there for the moment. What are the most important professional skills to cultivate, Lele?
It's the ones that I mentioned before, and I'll list them now. It's problem solving and critical thinking, because that's what organizations want, and that's who they hire. Companies like Bain and McKinsey, the firms, when they recruit, they're not recruiting for the qualifications that you have necessarily. They understand what skills the qualifications bring. So you'll find that in one job, they've got somebody who's BXI graduate, a B Business Science graduate, a BCom graduate, all doing the same job. But because they understand that in those qualifications, they learned how to problem solve and think critically. Be innovative and be creative. Collaboration is key. Leadership is important, as so is communication, service orientation, and emotional intelligence, as I mentioned before.
Thank you for that very succinct summary. All skills that can be worked on and developed with time. And in the professional space, you mentioned this before, there are bound to be conflicts and things that happen that potentially make one feel smaller. So that being said, and with your wealth of experience, could you tell us a little bit more about the common types of conflict that one can expect at work and how best to deal with conflict?
Yeah. Before I do that, I want to take us back to the skills that are important. And I think you rushed through it, but it's very important what you said, that you're going to learn those skills over a course of time. What is important, and if you're not doing it as a student now, do it. These skills, you do learn them at school and at varsity as well, whether you're a head prefect or whether you're in the SRC or whatever. These are the skills that you get to learn at varsity before you join the world of work. And one of the things that organizations, or some of the things that organizations look at when they're going through your CV that will set you apart, is the fact that you were involved in extramural activities, you were in leadership positions, and you did things beyond just being at school. So if you're not doing it at the moment, be part of something, be part of a larger cause where you're learning all of these skills that they require. Okay, now getting to conflict. I'm going to mention 4 types. I think it's 4. So the first one is role conflict. And this can be the most frustrating one when you're not sure who's responsible for what. Who do I talk to? Who do I inform when I'm done with this? Who do I consult with? There's a model called the RACI model that speaks about these things. So you're going to find conflict where you either being blamed because something didn't happen, or you're being blamed because you're involving yourself in something that you shouldn't be involving yourself with, or that you didn't consult somebody or you didn't inform somebody. And how you solve that is to just find out, be very clear in each and everything that you do, be very clear who is responsible, who is accountable, who you have to inform, and who you have to consult with. So that's the first type. The second one arises from misunderstandings, people not liking you, jealousy, and that's interpersonal conflict. Sometimes it's just plain idiots, really, when this arises, not necessarily because you've done anything wrong. You have to address that immediately. Call the person, address it with them directly. Remember, the HR department is not the social work department, okay? And if that's how they're behaving, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong organization. You have to address your own problems yourself and directly with the person concerned. Hear their side of the story and try and get a win-win situation, or at worst, a compromise situation if you can't come to a win-win situation. However, sometimes you might be required to assert yourself because the other person is really being an idiot about things. If it doesn't work, get somebody to mediate, your manager, his manager or her manager, or the HR department, in an instance where you've tried first to solve the problem yourself. There's also nothing wrong with avoiding or ignoring the issue if it doesn't really matter. You don't have to be fighting about everything. And compromising is also okay as well. And then the other thing is internal conflict. Not doing what you believe in and what you value when decisions are being made that compromise who you believe about yourself. An example here would be, for instance, people of the Muslim faith who refuse to work in an organization that sells interest-bearing products because it goes against their beliefs and what they have been taught. And a lot of them would refuse to work in an environment that does that. And that's why I said you have to be very clear on what it is that you value. Some people would not work for organizations that sell tobacco, for instance, because they are against tobacco products. So that's internal conflict. And then the fourth one is cross-functional conflict, when two departments really, so think about individuals in this instance, about departments who don't work well with each other when they should. The HR department needs to make sure that the finance department has a proper employee list so that they can pay the right people and vice versa. And you deal with it the same way that you would deal with interpersonal conflict. Address it immediately, get mediation, hear the other part, and assert yourself as well. So I said 4, there is the last one. The last one is process. When practices seem unfair, when there's favoritism, for instance, when there's injustice, when there's unfairness, and you have to speak out. You have to be confident enough to ensure that you resolve the conflict, and you can recommend changes if the situation and the organization allows for that. Okay. And a lot of organizations also have processes that you can follow when conflict arises, grievance procedures, and the first point of call is to address it directly yourself with the person involved.
So valuable to have this 5-step process. Thank you, Lele. I think you should write a textbook soon.
I'm trying to write a few textbooks. All of them are like 25%, done, and then work happens.
We can't wait.
I'll let you know.
Great. And staying on the topic of conflict, how would one deal with a really tricky situation of harassment or voicing concerns that are related to irregularities or conflict that may be happening in the workplace?
Yeah. Oh, first of all, I pray that none of you get to go through that, because it can be very demoralizing. It can be very painful. It's a painful process. People suffer trauma because of some of these experiences. So the first thing that I always advise people is to establish facts. Now, this is not to minimize what a person has gone through. It's especially in instances where you didn't experience something firsthand. Perhaps you heard from somebody that somebody said something about you, or somebody's, whatever. Establish the facts. Because when you've established the facts, everything else that I'm going to tell you about is going to be easy. It is an emotionally draining thing. And as I said, some people actually do experience it as trauma. So normalize the fact that you're not going crazy. It's an emotional thing. Think of sexual harassment, for instance. You will be emotionally tangled. And anybody that tells you that you're being sensitive, own it. You will be sensitive. Do not feel guilty for being emotionally entangled in that, and just damn all the voices that are telling you that you're being overly sensitive. You're going to require courage. And when you are addressing it, it's important that you know that you deserve the right things to be done for you and to you deserve it. So you're moving from a place of I deserve it rather than I'm asking for it, could you do me a favor? You deserve it, and nobody nobody is entitled to take that away from you. You've got your rights, and you've got to know what those rights are first and foremost. Whether it's written in a company policy and procedure document, employee handbook, or it's just common understanding. We have to respect each other. We don't have to put it in an employee handbook. And let's talk about sexual harassment. Let's talk about racial discrimination. Sometimes it's things that are very subtle, that are very difficult to speak about because you don't have tangible proof and whatever. I found that what helped me, because I've gone through some of these things, and what helped me, I read a lot, you probably gather from what I've been saying, was finding the words in how somebody else said it before me. Because you need to find the words, and when you find the words, it makes it easier. It's when you don't know how to say what your gripe is that it becomes difficult, because you feel that you've got to justify. And once you find how somebody else positioned it, you don't even feel that you have to justify, because you realize suddenly that, you know what, I'm not alone in this, and other people have gone through it, and this is what they said about it, and this is how they said it. Learn to find the words, okay? And as I said, it's important to know that you're not alone. Sometimes it's difficult to share that story of sexual harassment. Perhaps you're a bit too drunk after the work party or whatever, and you're afraid to share your story. And in sharing it, you might find that you're not the only one. Even if you are the only one, you're not the only one that knows that you didn't deserve it. So it's important that you share your story. Do not go at it alone. And lastly, the most difficult one might be that it is that extreme or that serious enough that you might actually even require you to lay a criminal case. And do not doubt yourself. When it gets to a point where you're thinking this should go to court, go for it, and find people who will support you. There will always be somebody who will support you. Do not be the person that enables the perpetuation of illegal activity at work by keeping quiet. So if it means that you go to court, by all means, go for it. A lot of people will tell you the opposite, that follow company procedure and whatever. Company procedure is not enough to deal with criminal activity. Criminal activity is very different to misconduct perpetrated at work. So you've got to be very clear about that. That's it.
Thank you for this tough conversation with us. It's not an easy topic to talk about or to think about, because one has rose-colored glasses on, particularly before your first job and embarking on the world of work. But it's such an important conversation to have. So thank you. And that being said, to wrap up, you have given us so many valuable tools, insights, a very clear distinction between the hard skills required, the soft skills, and various other aspects today. Do you have any final advice for the students and alumni of SBF on embarking on their career path?
I use the word a lot these days, and the word is deliberate. You've got to be very deliberate in everything that you do. When you wake up, you've got a plan of what's going to happen that day and why that thing is going to happen. So don't wake up to go and do a job. Wake up to go and deliberately do something that you intend. So deliberate intention is the word. If they forget everything that I have said today, it's deliberate intention for your career, for yourself, for how you speak to people, for how you forge forward in the future. Deliberate intent.
Thank you so much, Lele. It has been a blessing and a privilege having you here today.
Thank you. It's been an honor.